能力の代償だ。こういう行為とは無縁だと思っていた。
Yuki Wakura is a top-level beta male addicted to leveling up his house husband's skills in a world of feminists. When he ends up being used as a little toy by a squadron's commander, he becomes an overpowered beast and dedicates himself to clapping all the women that treated him like a dishwasher.
Oh my god!
Inside Kaminogo High School, Yuki Wakura and his friends, who were at school early, got to work and did the only thing they were good for: scrolling on TikTok to see some big bunda baddies.
Emotional damage!
Just joking, that's what I do. While his boys praised him for his cleaning skills, the ladies started pulling up and they watched as the independent baddies slowly poured in while using their powers, which only women possessed due to their world being designed to topple the patriarchy. Knowing he had more chances of winning a lottery than bagging an overpowered baddie, he went back to his housewife duties and helped his friend fix up a loose button. On his way home later on, he had started thinking about starting a career with high school, nearly finished when the entire area around him got covered in a thick fog and he found himself inside Mato, an alternate dimension with gateways scattered all over the world. Due to the alternate dimension being a part of everyday life, he planned to stay put and wait for rescue, but the monsters named Shuki had other plans and immediately chased him down.
My time has come.
Right as he was about to be sent to the afterlife, a hottie riding a Shuki saved him and introduced herself as Kyuka Uzen, commander of the 7th Squadron of the Demon Defense Force. After hopping on the Shuki's back and holding on to the commander, she told him to shut his pie hole while she spoke to her subordinates Himari Azuma, Shushu Shiruga, and Neo Kawamura, who were reporting on their rescue mission and left to search for more survivors while battling the Shuki with their powers granted by a peach that grew only in Mato. After they saved a little boy, they had started to head back to safety when he woke up and told them that he had a sister who was also in Mato. Meanwhile, Commander Kyuka, who was tired of listening to the rambling house husband, told him to zip it. Just then, they saw the little boy's sister about to get flattened by a Shuki, and the commander managed to save her. But with her Shuki being an extra-large sack of monster muscle, it was too weak to keep them out of danger, so she put up a barrier to keep monsters out while she figured out an escape plan. Her ability to enslave Shuki had always been a limiting factor in her combat level, and with there being no Shuki to enslave, she decided to try out her powers on the yapping geek. After making him kiss her glove, Yuki transformed into an overpowered beast subdued by the commander's eternal slave chains and cut down the Shuki with a single blow. Commander Kyuka then mounted his back and plowed through the beasts. With the siblings reunited, she made him blast straight through the Mato brains of a mega Shuki formed from the merging of hundreds of regulars, and told her girls to head back while she spoke with the slave. She explained to him that her ability demanded that she compensate her slaves for a good job done through what they envisioned mentally. The yapping house husband, who already had vivid mental images of what he wanted to do with the commander, immediately lived his fantasies before she told him to come work for them at the Defense Force, despite his only real skill being the art of ramen preparation. He accepted the offer as long as it meant getting the reward she had given him not long ago, and with that, they went back to the 7th Squadron's dorm that was safe despite being in Mato due to a strong barrier. Once inside, Kyuka explained that the otaku who thought he was going to be a soldier was going to serve as their personal butler. Years of experience being a rizzless dishwasher made Yuki's new life a breeze, and after a quick scrub down of the entire facility, he went to take a look from outside the dorm and almost joined his ancestors when a Shuki attacked. Luckily, the barrier kept him safe, and Nei, who had just returned, told him that their dorm was located in one of the most dangerous of the 9 sections in Mato. After Himari gunned down the Shuki, she reminded the slave of his place as a hired help who was privileged to breathe the same air as her and ordered him to get to cooking. With the ladies fed, he asked the commander for a manlier approach to his training, and when Himari almost chopped off his Adam's apple, the commander asked them to play nice to the boy toy and promised to yank off his miniature eggplant if he ever stepped out of line. Later that day, he was cleaning the watchtower when he snuck a peek at Himari as she used the bath. Shushu, who had snuck up on him using her powers that made her a low-budget wasp, took photos of him eye-clapping Himari and blackmailed him into becoming her personal slave. While performing his duties, he saw Himari training with the commander and realized that sticking to their good side was likely the only thing keeping him alive. Nei, his 11-year-old master, came by and told him to stick with Shushu as she was heading to a meeting with Himari and the commander. He then spent the rest of the evening being tossed around by Shushu, who dominated him at everything, including the games he thought he could win.
Nice.
While laughing at his baby carrot after he lost to her, they heard some noise and went out to see a Mega Shuki attacking the barrier, so Shushu used her paradigm shift to match the monster's size and dropped it. A second Shuki that she didn't see at first blindsided her, and Yuki, who saw that she had started to lose, sniffed his way through the commander's things until he found her boots and licked them, giving himself enough juice for a half transformation that he used to cut down the monster before falling into Shushu's massive melons. After getting down to size, Shushu noticed that the beta male otaku's baby carrot had also received some of the transformation's juice and wasn't so small anymore.
Damn!
Back at the dorm later on, the commander was back with the others and gave him a rather painful back cracking before ordering Shushu to share some tasks with him. But because she had managed to sneak a picture of his post-transformation physique and now had enough photo evidence to make him forever obedient, she left him to handle the work. Meanwhile, some of the Defense Force soldiers somewhere in Mato got their rice cakes handed to them by an overpowered chick with demon hair that seemed to know Yuki. Commander Kyuka, who had some paperwork in the regular world, took Yuki with her through one of the Force's interdimensional gates. After completing her tasks in the regular world, she took him to the Mato Mishap Memorial where the graves of those lost to Mato mishaps were kept. Kyuka, whose entire village was razed and people killed by a Shuki with a single horn she had named Unicorn, was hell-bent on taking her revenge on the beast and brought him there to show him how important that goal was to her. Before heading back, he found a parfait place and convinced her to get some with him. While they ate, he told her about his sister, who he had also lost to a Mato mishap, and promised to help her achieve her dreams. Just then, she received a conch shell horn message indicating that there was trouble and made him transform immediately. After getting back to the dorm, she took him to her room to give him his reward, which was a foot fantasy, and then went to meet the others who had discovered a nest filled with Shuki that needed to be taken care of. After getting to the site of the Shuki nest, they started taking them out with coordinated attacks until a beam blast knocked out Shushu. The horned Shuki that destroyed the commander's town was back, and its rider, who probably got her tattoo inspo from MGK, was just as overpowered as Kyuka. As they fought, she got a hold of Yuki and seemed to recognize him, but the commander gave her a hair trim before they could have a proper discussion, so the MGK fanatic dipped, and Kyuka, who was boiling with murderous intent, wanted to chase after them until she saw Yuki helping the girls that got knocked out. Once back at the dorm, the girls received treatment to help them recover, while Yuki received a different type of treatment to revive his blue eggplant.
Yeah, boy.
As the commander stomped on his sword, he told her about his suspicions of the unicorn's rider being his sister, but she was more focused on how she existed in the first place. Later that day, after making food for the squad with Nei, he was in the bath when Shushu came to wash his back as a thank you for saving her. But Yuki, who had something else in mind, used the opportunity to get an eyeful of her plot before running into the bathroom and nearly getting his head sawed off by Himari, who wasn't into being creeped on it. Before she could finish him off, a portal opened up and Tenka Izumo, commander of the 6th Squad, came through with Yachiho Azuma, the second in command, and asked the slave to fetch his master. Commander Tenka received word of the humanoid Shuki that had started popping up in Mato from the higher-ups and was there to convey a message asking the squad leaders to start taking a more cooperative approach to dealing with the Shuki. But Yachiho, the second in command, was especially there to roast her little sister Himari for being a pathetic weakling whose brain got turned off after she got whacked by the humanoid Shuki. Seeing how pissed off Himari was, Kyuka suggested a Mato exhibition match between both squads as a way to test out their strengths and combat skills. Tenka agreed to this and left with Yachiho to get prepped while Himari, who was hyped up, got the commander's permission to use her overpowered dishwasher for practice. After he made them food, she took him out with her and explained that her ability wasn't actually to become a dollar store cyborg. She could learn any ability after seeing it, and for this fight she was going to use the commander's ability to enslave him. Yuki tried to explain the special reward system to her, but she couldn't care less about what she thought was simply a stressful skill. After the first transformation that turned him into a slightly less powerful form than Kyuka's, but with increased speed, they did a test run, and while discussing the power after the test, Himari's body started to automatically reward the otaku. When she finally realized what the commander meant by physically demanding, she decided to get it over with and gave the otaku a face full of raw fish. While heading back, she told him that she could only use the commander's ability as learning others made them almost useless, with powers like Shushu's mega growth only giving her automatic melon enlargement. When she finally explained how being the incompetent underachiever of the Azuma family that was filled with overpowered feminists served as her deepest motivation, Yuki, who also had a goal to find his sister, decided to take their training more seriously. So, for the rest of the days leading to the fight, he perfected his combination of speed and strength to develop a super fast, deadly hit that could have a chance against Yachiho, who had the ability of Golden Hour, a power that gave her the ability to stop time for a couple of seconds. With the only way to succeed being a super fast, unstoppable attack, he dried himself out learning it and got a dopamine rush to get even stronger when Himari gave him her melons as a reward. It was finally the day of the exhibition, and after the 6th squad pulled up for the matchup, they made their way to an open field in Mato, where Gina Bizan, a member of the 6th, used her ability to create a barrier that would keep them safe and heal anyone who got injured while inside the barrier. The first matchup was between the Azuma sisters, and after it was kicked off, Little Miss Yaps a Lot, who couldn't keep herself from roasting Himari, got her insides rearranged by Yuki. She then reversed time and started trying to figure out how her sister managed to pull off the hit. While getting dressed for the match, Himari had asked Sahara Wakasa, who was Yachiho's teammate, if the cocky time stopper had trained for the fight, and found out that Yachiho, who thought her sister was still a self-sabotaging weakling, was chilling throughout the training period. Yachiho, who had used Golden Hour to reverse time, was ready to use it again to land her first hit, but Himari, who could tell when her sister was about to make the move, struck first and knocked her to the ground. Little Miss Yaps a Lot stopped talking and decided to get focused, so this time she used it to freeze time and tried putting a couple of bullets into her sister. But Himari had already gone out of her attack range before the skill activated, which helped them dodge the hit. They then started running laps around the midget Glock user and gradually picked up speed, planning another super fast hit. But Yachiho, who knew what her sister was thinking, decided to use her trump card and activated her skill again. Himari, who knew what was coming, made Yuki move out of the attack range, but this time Yachiho was using Prime Time, an upgraded version of the original skill that stopped time for 10 seconds and increased her attack's range. With this, she managed to clip Himari's wings with half a dozen bullets and sent them both falling after time resumed. Himari, who could barely move, was already shedding tears of failure while Little Miss Yaps a Lot started yapping again. But Yuki, who knew they could do more, gave her a pep talk and got her hyped enough to get on his back again. They immediately charged at Yachiho, who used the regular Golden Hour, but this time she couldn't see anything as Yuki went back to normal and almost blinded her with the brightness of the transformation. Not knowing what they were planning, she shot at him, hoping to hit her sister as well. But Himari was underneath her and sent a bullet into her fun-sized neck, ultimately securing victory by reminding the cocky Glock user that people who lived by the gun die by the gun. After Gina Bizen healed them up, Himari rejected her sister's offer to take her back home and went off with Yuki. Meanwhile, Shushu, who was up next, went to get some water. Once inside the dorm, Himari rewarded him by orally rehydrating the parched soldier, and continued the process with different levels of intensity while Shushu watched from the shadows. Captain Tenka met up with Yachiho to tell her that Yuki had actually held back his first hit that could have instantly silenced her forever. Back at the exhibition match, Shushu was up next against the sleeping beauty named Sahara, while some otherworldly beings that looked a bit different from Yuki's MGK-loving sister watched over the dueling squads. After seeing Yuki receiving his reward from Himari, Shushu was hyped for her match and scheduled an appreciation session with him afterward. To make things a bit more interesting, the girls, who were both UFC fans, decided to start off with good old hand-to-hand combat, but after the first couple takedowns, Sleeping Beauty decided to bring out the big guns. Shushu immediately busted out her paradigm shift, and Sahara unleashed the Mad Sheep, an ability that amped up her strength for anywhere between 1 to 60 minutes. Her strength was stronger with less time, and for her match against Goliath's side piece, she decided to use 3 minutes, which gave her enough strength to slap the 10-ton hottie down to size. After Sahara knocked the giant around and made her look like a comically large sack of weakness, Shushu remembered her dreams of having a fun life that made her leave a danger-free life for the Force and went all out with a larger transformation that she used to flatten the flaming boxer. Thinking she had secured victory, she sat back to catch her breath, but Sahara, who had just unlocked her trump card, went on the offensive. Her trump card could only be activated if she got knocked out while using her powers, and since Shushu had done just that, she transformed into Zenitsu's wife and went nuts on the gas giant. After getting knocked out and defeated, Shushu made a shameful, tear-filled exit to the dorm, and Yuki followed and tried to cheer her up, so she took the opportunity to snag a kiss from him. Meanwhile, back at the field, Nei, who was scanning for threats, saw the 3 spectators from earlier who knew she had seen them and decided to make an entrance. They sent a Thor imposter named Ryren, who used his thunder to crack the barrier like a boiled eggshell. Acknowledging his strength, Tenka took Nei and Gina Beeson to the safety of the dorm, while the others engaged the Thundermaster, who was clearly struggling to choose between trying to play Thor or Raiden. While Shushu and the others cleared the Shuki that came with Reiren, Yachiho saved Himari from getting fried and decided to take on the buff weatherman by herself. Kyuka, who had an idea, decided to make Yuki try to take on 2 masters at once, and after combining her abilities with Himari's, they both made him strong enough to use a blast similar to what his sister used against them. Gina, who was watching the fight through Nei's ability, was geeking off from watching Kyuka chop down Shuki with nothing but her sword skills that she had perfected before ever relying on her Mado Peach granted abilities, and Tenka, who was back from getting the non-combatants to safety, was not about to let the decorated dishwasher outdo her, so she took over from Yachiho after single-handedly wiping out Reiren's army of Shuki. While the rest of the girls teamed up and took out the Shuki Thunder Sama had brought with him, he faced Tenka and tried letting her have a taste of his mouth blasters. When she dodged them with her teleportation powers and gave him a good scratch, he decided to take things up a notch and brought down the electricity in the atmosphere to make her crisper than air-fried chips. But due to Tenka simply being too OP for such childish techniques, she brushed off his warm tap and knocked him into flight mode with a brutal right hook. While he was suspended, rethinking his existence, she used her ability named Aim no Mitori to get him sucked out of the current space-time and extinguished. After taking out the rest of the monsters, they all went back to the dorm where Nei told them that the others who were with Reiren had escaped, and Himari thanked her sister for saving her but still turned down the offer to go back home. After Gina, who now realized that not all men were weak organ sacs, took Yuki's autograph, the 6th squad left and called a draw on their exhibition match. Yuki was headed to take a shower when Kyuka and Himari, who had both used him in combat, rewarded him by giving him a good scrub down in the bath. The next day, Kyuka, Yuki, and Himari went to the 6th Squadron squad while Shushu hung back and decided to start working on herself so Yuki would notice her. Yuki, who immediately went to work in the dorm, couldn't find anything to do besides the excessive laundry piled up by the girls of the squad. After finding out that Yachiho was a psycho who was obsessed with Himari, he tried to cover up Sahara, who was sleeping on the couch and got knocked out by Sleeping Beauty's fish-infused leg lock. When she woke up and apologized to him, they met Himari, who was watching her sister work out and told her to talk to Yachiho. Sahara theorized that their powers were actually connected to who they were or wanted to be, with Yachiho's time manipulation coming from a hope to spend time with her sister and Himari's coming from a desire to learn and get stronger. The commanders, who were having a meeting, discussed the humanoids from earlier and decided that they would make the first move to find them, and Tenka told Kyuka that she wasn't sure if Reiren had actually died from her space-time manipulation. Reiren, who was actually saved just in time, was back at the lair with his teammates. Shikoku, Medusa's daughter, who orchestrated the whole battle, had already personally taken out the 3rd Squadron, but since their commanders were absent, she staged the battle with Tenka and Kyuka to test their abilities. The battle had given her enough information to scrap Reiren's plan to use their resources to launch a full-scale attack on the Demon Defense Force. Hawkman's African cousin named Joryu supported her decision, and she ultimately decided that they would keep operating from the shadows until they gathered a certain group of people. Back at the 6th Squadron's dorm, Commander Tenka asked Kyuka to let her have a go with her slave, the enthusiastic dishwasher whom she had spied on the night before while he slept. Tenka had excelled at every aspect of her life, besides getting some action with her melons and rice cakes. After seeing how devoted Yuki was to his master, she had built up a very strong desire to start off her love with him and offered to nominate Kyuka during the next voting for the seat of Supreme Commander of the Demon Defense Force, which was the slave master's ultimate goal. Later on, after she had turned down Tenka's offer due to her ego and desire to win the seat by sheer will, she was on her way back to their dorm with Yuki and Himari when she told them about Tenka's wishes and gave him freedom to do as he pleased with his private life. That night, while thinking about how good it felt to be wanted by the 10/10 commander, she came to see him with her powers and wasted no time getting down to business. She made it very clear that she wanted him, but unlike the arrangement he had with Kyuka, she wanted a normal relationship with not-so-normal activities. She then tried to give him a little appetizer to show exactly what she had planned for him if he were to accept the proposal to be her boyfriend, but they were interrupted by Shushu, who wanted to play video games with him. After calling out the commander for being an unhinged otaku that abused her powers for pleasure, she said goodbye to her lover, and Kyuka told them all to get to bed as they were to have an early training session. The next day, she called them out and decided to try lending out her ability to dominate Yuki so they would give him some of their skills, which could be beneficial for the upcoming mission against the humanoid Shuki. They started with Nei, who climbed his back and changed him into an overgrown Pokemon. With Nei's abilities, he was a lot slower and less powerful than usual, but his senses were heightened, so Kyuka decided that her skill would be good for surveillance missions. However, she also noticed that lending her powers drained her energy. When Nei gave him a peck as an involuntary reward, Shushu realized that she could use the opportunity to get him to fulfill her gamer girl fantasies and immediately hopped on his back for the transformation. Her skills made him a lot stronger than usual, but he was basically an extra-large tank that could barely move his own weight. Since he didn't receive her ability to get huge, Kyuka decided to trash the skill, and the only reward she gave him was the bandage around his sprained arm. When Nei got dressed up for school, he decided to follow her to find out why she was in the force at such a young age. While walking her to school, he found out that she had lost her parents to a Mato mishap, and her powers, named Promise, were triggered as a result of her desire to find them one day, which was also why she had joined the force. Back at the dorm, the commanders were discussing orders from the current Supreme Commander, which were against any attacks on the humanoid Shuki. The Supreme Commander intended to negotiate with the Shuki in order to see if they were intelligent and gather information that could help stop Mato mishaps permanently. After their meeting, Tenka went back to playing with Yuki, but their fun was interrupted by Himari and Shushu, who sounded the alarm after finding multiple gateways during their patrol. Once outside with Tenka's portals, Kyuka asked her to leave as that was the 7th Squad's jurisdiction and immediately called on Yuki. She was clearly not as calm as usual and told him that she wasn't okay with his free personal life anymore as he belonged to her, and she was done letting him have fun with another commander. She became a little rough and dragged him across the field, bashing Shuki heads and slicing through a new type of Shuki that could regenerate after getting hit. The new type was an experiment created by Shikoku, the snake-haired being who left after testing out her new toys. Meanwhile, Tenka, who was back at the dorm, was only getting more intoxicated by her obsession with Yuki. After helping Kyuka take out the attacking Shuki and daydreaming about saving her one day, he got rewarded by experiencing what it meant to not be a beta male who washed dishes, and when they got back to the dorm, Kyuka told the rest of the squad about how obedient the slave was. They then chased off Tenka, who was still waiting to see her lover, and talked about their siblings and families. Yuki's sister was a pro wrestling fan who had helped him take down bullies and bought him ramen before the Mato mishap that separated them. While talking about their families, Nei sensed someone in Mato who was surrounded by Shuki and notified the squad, who immediately sprung into action and went to save the civilian. The civilian turned out to not be so innocent and knocked Himari into flight mode, but luckily she was able to block the liver shot. Their attacker's name was Coco, and she was one of the humanoid Shuki they were planning to hunt down, so according to the orders they had received, they tried to negotiate with her, but Coco wasn't there to chat and sent Kuma, an evolved Shuki, against Himari, while Shushu took on another evolved spider Shuki, carrying a second humanoid Shuki. Yuki, who was summoned while he was bathing, transformed and got to the fight with Kyuka to face the humanoid Shuki he suspected was his sister. But immediately they got close enough. She made him stop moving with a single command and kidnapped him with her Rapunzel locks. Yuki, who had passed out, woke up to the smell of fried fish and saw Coco licking every inch of his clothless body. When the tatted Rapunzel named Aoba came in, she almost cracked Coco's spine when the third Shuki came in and explained that Coco was licking his injuries away with her healing saliva. Aoba released her and gave Yuki a hug after revealing that she was indeed his long-lost sister. She then took him outside to show him their Shuki lair, called Hidden Village. She told him that her Mato mishap caused an accident accident that left her and her friends turned into their humanoid Shuki forms, and they all got pissed when he suggested that they get help from the Demon Defense Force. While talking with Coco and Neon, they showed him mushrooms that grew in their village, and the smell gave him an instant high that caused him to take charge for the first time in his life and try to manhandle the two tatted hotties at once. While his life urges flared up, Kyuka, who started to feel his involuntary reward system, could sense him and called the girls to get prepped for a rescue mission. After he regained his senses, he asked her about the Matto peach she always held in her hand because unlike most of the world's women, she didn't eat one until after the Matto mishap. She explained that it was the Matto peaches that gave her the blacked out skin color and not an alien tattoo artist. Meanwhile, Kyuka had summoned Kenta, Yachiho, and Sakata to combine forces and follow her reward cravings in order to find their lost puppy. After telling Yuki about how the Matto peaches had actually caused their abnormal features, Neon explained that she used to be a model and due to an addiction to her beauty, she had refused to eat a Matto peach, hoping to wait for old age where she planned to get a power that would allow her to rejuvenate her beauty. But after a Matto mishap left her stranded in the Shuki-packed dimension, she had no choice but to eat one. After she ate the peach, hoping to get a power to protect herself, the peach went crazy and knocked her out. She then woke up in a facility where an old lady that looked like Baba Yaga told her that she was in the Onmyu Bureau, a facility for studying Shuki, which they suspected she had become when they saw her morphed limbs and colored body. After conducting several inhumane experiments on her, she escaped with her ability to pass through things. Coco had also experienced something similar and escaped, but for Aoba, when she ate the peach, she experienced excruciating pain and went nuts for a couple of years. After getting a hold of her fried brain, she found their hidden village and met up with Coco and Neon. Together, they planned to take down the Onmyu Bureau for hiding the deadly effects and threats the peaches posed to the people. The reason they intended to do it with force and without help from the force was because they didn't trust them and knew the Bureau would silence them if they tried to do things by the books. With the crash course completed, they introduced him to Kuma Doji, a Shuki pup that fell into a bath of steroids, Akura, a Shuki spider with Australian roots, and Unicorn Kidumaru, the titanium abs unicorn that burned down Kyuka's village. While they talked, Kyuka and Tenka came through one of her portals and discussed their plan to launch a surprise attack on the hidden village. But they ended up being the ones surprised when they got ambushed by some Shuki and Coco who was riding on Kuma. After taking out the Shuki with Golden Hour, the Akuma sisters and commanders went into the cave while Sahara and Shushu dealt with Coco. Once inside, they ran into Neon and Akura, so the commanders left the Akuma sisters to handle the mutated Australian spider while they used Tenka's portal to swipe Yuki away from his sister. After reuniting with their lost pup, Kyuka gave him his reward by cleaning his fingers thoroughly, and Tenka, who didn't like being left out, joined in on the fun. Aoba, who eventually caught up to them, decided to hold back from attacking the commanders when Yuki asked her to talk, so she gave them a rundown of why she was planning to attack the Bureau and anyone who stood in their way. Although they understood her anger and reasons they were against standing by and letting her have her way. So Aoba tied up her brother and summoned Kidumaru to face Kyuka while she took on Tenka. Outside the hidden village, Sahara and Shushu were done running and used their abilities to take things up a notch, but Coco's ability to generate slime and Kuma's indestructible body made their attacks pointless. Yachiho, on the other hand, had more luck with her trusty Glock 69 that she used to squash the spider's brain before it could cut hers off. But Himari, who didn't have Yuki to cover up for her Sakura-level skill, got caught by Neon and a Shuki. Hawkman's cousin, who was watching the fight, went back to tell Shikoku that she had found some of the people they were looking for and started to prep for a dramatic entrance to capture the attention of their targets and teach them Matto combat showbiz. The boss-level showdown kicked off with Kyuka taking a few pounds of flesh from Kidumaru with a very calm technique she had mastered after the last fit of rage that nearly cost the lives of her squad members, and Tenka quickly got acquainted with her sister-in-law, who used her superhuman speed to escape getting caught in one of her wormholes. Seeing how disadvantaged she was at her base level, Aoba took a bite from her peach and got fueled up to take down the teleporting psycho trying to join her family. With her increased speed and senses giving her the ability to hear Tenka's portals opening, she had the commander running laps through her portals to escape getting caught. Meanwhile, Sahara and Shushu's attacks were barely putting a dent in the slimy short stack and her demon dog, who Sahara identified as the Shuki documented in the Force's records after an attack on Kagashima 8 years ago. After Koko teased Shushu by talking about the game she was playing with Yuki in the cave, the giant decided to initiate Formation S and made Sahara lure out the demon dog by running away. Once at a safe distance, Shushu, who had shrunk into Sahara's palm, got thrown into the demon dog's digestive system and went huge, ripping Kuma in half and leaving Koko suspended midair and open to Sahara, who then used her ability to cut through the slimy midget with one of Kuma's teeth. Back in the cave, Yachiho, who saw Himari get captured, turned back time to save her but kept having to repeat the same thing as she couldn't find Neon, who was swimming through the walls. After getting gassed from constantly turning back time, Himari decided to use a secret move she had been saving up and turned her hair strands into submachine guns that she used to blast the entire cave into rubble. When her bullet shower made Neon fall out of the walls, Yachiho turned back time again and showed Himari her location in the walls. The sisters then took down the Miss Martian wannabe and her mutant spider. Back at the showdown of bosses, Tenka had gotten tired of playing catch with her sister-in-law and made her pass through a portal in front of Kyuka, who then knocked her off her rhythm and created an opening for Tenka to take her out with a wormhole. But at the last moment, Tenka froze up and got blasted. Aoba, who knew she had pulled her punches, asked her why, and she started yapping about her dreams of having a family with Yuki and Aoba while bleeding out on the floor. Hearing her delusion, Aoba, who had spent a good chunk of her life fighting insanity, decided to spare her, but she wasn't backing down from her mission to take down the Onmu Bureau with her girls. After hyping up her mission to take down the world with her overpowered tatted girl squad, the girl squad pulled up while riding on Kuma and told her about how Kyuka and Tenka's girls had almost sent their rice cakes to the great beyond, but Aoba was still standing her ground against the now united Demon Defense Squad. Just then, Medusa's daughter and Hawkeye's distant cousin dropped in and snatched Neon and Koko. Shitoku revealed that they were the 8 Thunder Gods who led all these Shukis of Mato with a mission to end humanity, and with a single bite from one of her snakes, she reverted Kidumaru to its murderous nature. After decorating the walls with Aoba's blood, it was about to finish her off when Yuki, who had transformed to his slave form, stopped the rampaging unicorn. Kyuka, who remembered how her once peaceful village filled with life and years of beautifully crafted architecture went up in flames and got covered in blood when the unicorn struck, charged at the ultra-strong beast with help from Yuki. Shitoku, who was enjoying the fight, decided to hang back and watch while Juryu left with Aoba's friends. Seeing the damage the unicorn had already dealt his sister and remembering the training he had received, Yuki channeled his strength and broke both of the monster's arms, forcing it to morph into its final, most lethal form. With nothing but sheer will and delusion coursing through him, Yuki held back the charging Shuki and broke its horn with a single bite, while Kyuka slashed its face with her blade. With the technique she spent eons perfecting just for the Shuki, she tied him down with Yuki's chains and sliced the rampaging monster in half. Seeing that the fight was over, Shitoku made her exit, and Kyuka, who had sent Yuki to gather the others, raised her sword to her lost hometown. With everyone getting safely transported to safety to receive care with Nei's help, Kyuka offered to help Aoba with her mission and promised her safety away from the eyes of the Bureau. But with other villages filled with Shuki like her and her closest allies abducted by the Thunder Gods, hiding wasn't a viable option. Before they left, Kyuka promised to help change things and protect her from the Bureau by taking over the position of Supreme Commander from Yamashiro-san, the current Supreme Commander who they suspected was likely aware of the Bureau's practices. Once back at the dorm, Tenka left to get her injuries checked out, and Kyuka left Yuki on standby while Kei checked up on him. After having a bath, Kyuka released Yuki from his slave form and made him get cleaned up before his reward session, which was mostly an attempt to crack his spine as punishment for getting himself kidnapped. At the lair of the Thunder Gods, Neon and Koko got fed to one of the gods Reiren claimed was the only one of them who needed food to get strong. The next day, with everyone healed up, the squads met up to feast on Yuki's best dishes and celebrated their recovery and half-victories. By the end of the day, he remembered the token from the past his sister left him with before she left, and decided that his new mission would be to help his sister by finding a cure to her Mato curse. By morning, he woke up to Tenka, who was back to her portal-abusing ways and ended up getting punished by Kyuka again. Himari had also called him to help her train her abilities so she could get stronger, while Shushu, who had gone on Reddit to get dating advice, was playing the cold game and trying to get his attention by pretending not to care. As usual, Nei sensed a gate opening with Shukis pouring in, so the squad suited up and went to bash heads while Aoba was somewhere in Mato, feasting on peaches and hunting down leads on her quest to find her friends.